All right, everyone, welcome back to the Trap House podcast. We've got a great guest today. Bill Duke's with us of Duke Traps. Thanks for being on, Bill.
Oh, I'm glad to be here. Thank you guys for inviting me.
Yeah, and thanks for being a sponsor of the show. That really means a lot. So for your first time on, there's so much to talk about with what your family's been a part of, what you're a part of now, and just the history of Duke Traps in general. But maybe we should start as early as you can remember, as far as how it all started with the family name.
Yeah, I'll go into that a little. I was born in '72, so my memory of it is gonna start from, say, the late '70s when I was traveling a little bit with my father. But our family got into the fur business just as a little sideline business to do because my grandparents operated convenience shops in neighborhoods around town, and fur was something they could trade. They could buy from local trappers and hunters and make a little bit of a margin on. In addition to the pecan business, we also do. That was something they could buy and sell relatively easy as a sideline item, just in the back of their store. And it over time, those couple of businesses really became much bigger than the little grocery stores that they ran.
Hmm.
So that just kind of developed into full blown fur buying business then.
Well, I think the way my dad talks, the fur business really picked up a lot in the '70s,
Right.
and of course, I remember it in the late '70s, early '80s. Um, we ran fur routes, probably like a lot of fur dealers did, and bought fur across Mississippi and Alabama. Those were the trading areas that we operated in.
Yeah, they and that was back, when in the '70s and '80s when that southern fur was in good demand, just like everywhere else. There was a need for it.
It was the coat coon. A lot of German customers really liked that coat coon that we had. It was a decent color, not maybe not the best, but it was still a decent color, and they really liked it. So we had a good market for coon and gray fox. Those were really the boom times that I remember when I was, say, 6, 7 years old and was hanging around with my dad in the shop. We
Mhm.
would, yeah, we would have fur buyers on the road and bringing loads in and processing the fur. Those were real fond memories.
The you for everyone, you want to explain the definition of a coat coon?
Well, a coat coon is a light, a lighter furred raccoon skin that they could use to make full coats out of that didn't really weigh a lot.
Right. Yeah, that was that skin didn't have the underfur like our northern coons do, or north of here. So yeah, it was a coon that wouldn't weight a woman down if she was wearing a full length coat. So um,
Right.
it's
Where the skins you guys would have would be more for the trim.
right, right. But in those days, and I remember I started buying fur in '76, actually '75, and it was, that I was at the time, I think I was, well, when I first started, I was 18. But yeah, that was crazy times. It was just anything with fur on it, they were interested in. That was,
Yeah, you buy something today and then you sell it for a lot of money a few days later. It was a real boom time, and it was an interesting time to be involved in the fur business. You could see it from that perspective, and then say the late '80s, early '90s, you could see the other end of it too.
right, right. We definitely saw the best and the worst of times in that in that time frame.
Oh yeah.
So when did you guys start making traps?
Yeah, we were trap supply dealers at the time. We were a Victor dealer and a Northwoods distributor also. So we were handling a fair amount of traps, and my dad got an idea that he wanted to try to develop a 1.5 coil. So I think it was in the fall of '86 we developed a 1.5 coil, 500 dozen I think it was that we tried, and they were kind of crude, but they did the job, and we sold those, and then we started getting into more sizes like a 2, a 1 coil, and then we just expanded it over time. But I think when we really started seeing growth was about the time the fur market took a real downturn.
Right.
89, 90, 91. Those were the years that you really remember. And you remember what happened too with with a lot of fur dealers having inventory of supplies, and they needed to raise capital, so they would sell the supplies for less than they paid for them. Well, it was a vicious cycle that you really couldn't fix when people could buy stuff that was less than less than production cost. But
Right. Right.
and at that time, nobody really wanted to buy traps. They were selling used traps, just trying to get out of it.
Right. Right. Yeah, that was kind of you're right. A vicious cycle is the best way to put it. And to parallel that, it was the guys that shipped to NAFA or whatever, and then took advances on fur, and they got several layers in deep that way. And like you said, selling inventory for below cost and just to raise some sort of cash, which was obviously negative, but it was still, but
Yeah, the leverage that was in the supply business was pretty incredible, because everything was levered. I'm sure
Mhm.
people borrowed money at the bank, then they borrowed money on the fur that they sent in, and then when it came down, gosh, it really cleaned a lot of people out.
Right.
Yeah.
Hmm. I guess
I,
go ahead.
this topic comes up quite a bit on the show, or Charlie will be sharing stories from those times, and I was like, man, I'm sad that I missed some of it, but there's parts I'm glad I wasn't around for. That's for sure.
Yeah, a lot of that was no fun.
It was no fun, but everybody needs to know what it's like, and they need to know what it feels like to go through a time period and what happens. I don't guess
Right.
every downturn's not the same, but you need to understand what can happen.
Right. I
Yeah.
think I think Bill that we went from that 87, 88 season, and that was incredibly good. I was at that sale in well, it was North or Hudson Bay at the time, and
Yeah.
at their February or March sale, however that fell. And that was a great sale, and within 10 months it was terrible. And so we went from it's kind of like 2013. We went from really good prices to like nothing. It was like somebody just shut the faucet off, and the same thing happened with the supply sales. It was
Yeah.
pretty crazy. So
Yeah. So I think all of us have a survivor bias in just going through that time period. You know what can happen, and you just try to position. You don't know what's going to happen, but you know what can happen. You just try to position yourself so that you're not as vulnerable during whatever comes along.
what do you see? I mean, presently the fur market is not good, and it really hasn't been for probably our last highlight was 2013. Then we had Coyote market was decent up until a couple years ago.
Yeah.
What do you see as the driving force behind this whole thing now, in terms of supply sales and trap sales? And
Yeah. What we're seeing right now is people trapping for different reasons. They're not trapping specifically for the fur market, although that would be a great driver if we had that, but they're not trapping strictly for the fur market. Some guys do have good markets for beaver, and that's a positive, the cats, and there's a few other odd items, but the big ones, the big volume items, those are just hard.
right.
And I don't know what turns that around. I think that we've got to have some trends that get in place, and predicting what those trends are going to be. Who knows? I mean, who could have predicted that the coyote market would have been as strong as it was um, up until Canada Goose decided to go in a different direction? But it's a trend that maybe slowly gets in place, and it has a life cycle. I don't know what starts it, and I don't know what ends it, but it could be a variety of factors.
Right, right. Canada Goose is kind of a unique story in the fact that I think the business was really, really good when they decided to go a different direction. It was basically just from outside pressure of a non-consumer of their product. I think that basically made them make those, or help them make the choices that they did. But
Yeah, and if you look at what Canada Goose is going through right now, I'm not saying that their decision to not use coyote fur is the reason for this, because I think it's other things, but their stock price it's in the dumps right now.
mhm.
And that's just too bad for those guys. But I really wish they had listened to the consumer and made consumer choices available. It wouldn't have been that hard for them to decide to make coyote trim available if somebody wanted it, but they took away that choice, and
Right.
that's what I really have a hard problem with.
Yeah, I mean, it was, yeah. So,
Yeah, there was a lot of people that wanted it, you know.
yeah, it's like, who pulls the plug on something that's successful, essentially? I mean, that's kind of what it came
That
down to.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody has a problem wearing a coyote, then take it off, or offer it without that. But to take away that consumer choice, I just think was a big
Mhm.
mistake. I can't really say too much about what they did. It's a decision they made, but they'll they're dealing with other issues right now, less demand for their products, and I think that's probably got a lot to do with overseas demand and just a general weakness in consumers' appetite to spend $1,000 on a coat.
Mhm. Yeah, things are definitely, you know, we were definitely going through evolving, or whatever you want to call it, at the point where we've got, basically, we lost NAFTA. Things are changing significantly in the Scandinavian countries with ranch mink. And of course we had a unavoidable, well, whatever you want to call it. We had COVID that definitely affected things, and then we had and of course the Russian-Ukraine conflict. So
The list just keeps going.
it's like
There are a lot of things working against the fur business right now.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think if some of that would just ease up just a little bit, we would probably see a pretty good, bump in it, particularly if they continue to get the ranch mink inventory down. So
Yeah, I think there's a lot still that needs to be sold, but at the current prices, there's going to be no production. Why would anybody continue to produce ranch mink and lose money?
right. Right.
It's gonna have an impact on the supply, and I guess we'll see whether those mink ranchers continue to produce, or whether they decide to pelt out and just go into retirement.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I would think some of them, after fighting it, for a number of years, would be, looking forward to retirement. It's kind of like, at what point do you quit beating your head against the wall?
Yeah, I know. I kind of wonder that too.
Excuse me.
So where do you we just mentioned a bunch of negative things. What are you looking forward to as far as like what's happening right now? Where do you see some highlights that might be some light coming through all that darkness?
Yeah, I think what we have to do in the supply trade, and what trappers have to do, is find a way to enjoy trapping, because if the money's not going to be bringing people in to trap fur, you've got to either find a resource from a landowner that's going to help you, pay you to trap animals, or nuisance animal control work from homeowners that need something done. Or, I mean, there's a lot of ways that people can make money doing that, in the absence of the fur market. And I think if people want to stay in it, that's what you have to do. How long it takes until things turn, who knows? But we're in it for the long haul, and we're not going anywhere. It's in our family. It's what we enjoy doing, and as long as my dad's here and I'm, healthy, we're going to keep, keep supplying traps and find ways to get people involved in trapping, whether fur markets are high or low or whatever.
So, I guess going back a little bit, Bill, were you guys kind of scratching your head as like, what are we doing going into the 90s with the situation that we were in?
Oh,
But
I
you
mean,
guys kind of you guys kind of pushed through it, but
well, I mean, the only reason we pushed through it is because we didn't have real high overhead costs and we just managed through it. But
yeah,
those were tough years when you really couldn't sell anything new because there was a lot of used equipment and there was also a lot of new equipment that was in dealer hands that was just being dumped. But I guess these cycles have a way of working themselves out. I remember there were some really, really dark years, 90, 91. Those were really dark years. 92 was not a really good one either. And and then 96, 97, things started slowly picking up. There was more interest from Russia and then you see these cycles just get worked out. But I think you really can't predict. You just have to be prepared for whatever comes along. And if you got to ride it out a few years with low sales, and that's just what you do.
yeah, yeah.
Well, with all that too, like I'm curious. I mean, obviously with the push of fur sales and everything, that drives business for everyone that's involved in this sort of industry. But like you see a direct correlation to trap sales. Um, is there's really no total way around that unless, like you said, those other avenues are available for people to start nuisance, or hobbyists need to really get out there and just keep the tradition alive. And but I mean, that's the driving factor, right? If the fur market's good, your trap sales are going to be good, just blatant.
It's one of the best drivers you can have. But in the absence of a strong fur market, you've got people that are still active in wanting to remove nuisance animals. I mean, you just look at the DP and what that trap has done to bring people into the trapping fold. People that have no prior trapping experience at all have become trappers, and they're getting experience trapping coons, whether they're deer hunters or turkey hunters or whatever their purpose is. If they want to get nuisance animal numbers down, um, they're adopting trapping techniques, and you bring people in it like that.
Yeah.
I will say too, I'm glad you guys offer a powder coated DP. I love that. Makes cleanup easier.
Yeah, it has been a good little feature. I didn't know we needed to do that, but I really like that feature too. It keeps it clean. I mean, you might have to spray paint it after some use, but it does keep it clean, and there's very little that goes wrong with that trap.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty straightforward. So, and that trap is still a significant seller. I mean, it's even with basically no coon market. I mean, I think a lot of it, people like catching raccoons, and of course the nuisance side of it. It's just, and it's so easy to use. Anybody can use it. Someone that's never set a trap before can buy the DP, get a 5-minute instruction, and go out and catch a raccoon.
Yeah, it's a game changer. It's one of the biggest innovations in trapping.
I think so. In recent years. So what, I guess historically, what are you seeing as significant changes over the 100 years or so that kind of led us to where we are today in terms of trap development? Or
Well, I don't know that I could really say where trap development is going entirely, because there could be something that comes out that none of us know anything about. But if you look at
looking at the past,
yeah, where we came from in the past, some of the major sellers, I'm talking number one long spring, the Gibbs coil spring foot trap, the Conibear 110. Those were huge game changers for trappers. And if you think about what was going on around that time, it probably coincided with a strong fur market that encouraged people to use those traps in big numbers. But those were game changers. The ones that sold 1 million pieces in a year.
Hmm.
And the biggest game changers now are going to be the DP. That's a huge seller for every supply dealer out there. They're just selling big numbers of those, and we are too. In the foothold side, I really think the our Pro Series with the smooth cast jaws has a potential for being a game changer. You're seeing a lot of people that are new into trapping start out using a trap like that because it's easy to set. It comes already set up, so they don't have to fine tune it. It's easy on the animal. I mean, it's almost the best combination of everything. It's easy for the trapper to use. It's easy on the animal. It's very effective. I mean, usually you have some trade-off, and there's not much of a trade-off with with a foot trap that's got a smooth cast jaw. So I think that is the future of the foot trap, is a smooth cast jaw with with that type of feature.
I mean, that is definitely one of the selling points is, that we deal directly with trappers on a daily basis. And we say, this is actually considered a higher end trap. It's a little more money, but it is ready to go out of the box. It's the best you can get, and it's simple to use, and they're not going to have to adjust it. They can do a little trap treatment to it. But yeah, it's I think that's definitely where that's all heading in terms of foot traps for sure.
It's almost predictable what people buy these days. If they're getting into trapping, they're going to buy 110s maybe, but they're going to buy DPs. They're going to buy 550 coil spring foot traps, and that becomes standard equipment. It's almost predictable when somebody calls up and they're getting into trapping. This is what they're going to do.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned 110s, and in our part of the country, the 110 with so few muskrat numbers, we literally, in the 70s and 80s, we'd sell hundreds of dozens of them, and now it's like, it's a much tougher sell than it once was, and now it's just all strictly relates to muskrats. We just don't have them like we used to.
Yeah, we don't either. All the muskrats we buy, we could fit in a feed sack.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy how that has come around to that, so, but
now, what part of Mississippi are you in, Bill?
Yeah, we're in Northeast Mississippi.
Okay.
We're about 30 miles from the Alabama line, and about say 70 miles from the Tennessee line, that northeast quadrant.
Okay. So, I mean, you guys are still buying fur.
We still buy fur. It's a passion my dad has. He enjoys doing it, and I support him in that as long as he wants to continue to buy fur. But it's a really hard business. Anybody that continues to do that, they've got to love it. Otherwise, right, they would not be in it.
It's you guys.
I mean, there are people in the state here that if my dad didn't buy their fur, they'd just quit trapping altogether because they wouldn't have any place to go with it. So he kind of feels an obligation to continue to run his regular routes to the communities where he's been going for a lot of his life, and buying from those people, because if he didn't do it, that would just be that'd be the end of those people doing any kind of trapping.
I mean, I fully appreciate that, because most are not doing that, and then particularly in the South, even less. It's just, that's just not around like it was. So yeah, I appreciate you guys doing that.
Well, the things we could buy are, I mean, we can buy all the coon we want, but we can't sell any coon. That's they just end up piling up. We can buy beaver, and we can sell beaver, and we can sell otter, and we can sell cats, and those things maybe maybe make it make sense, but at some point we'd like to sell some coon.
Yeah, our bread and butter item of raccoon, that, and of course cats have become almost a bread and butter item. It's unfortunate that we don't have that raccoon market, so. And even I know Growing Oil put some out the other day that on the northern coon they were talking about 16 on a a really good finished raccoon, and that's the best Iowa's and Wisconsin and Minnesota or whatever. So I mean that doesn't leave any room for anybody at south of that to speak of, so but
Yeah, it's a little hard to make that work because your averages are going to be way lower than that.
oh yeah, I mean at least probably 5 to 8 on a nice bunch of coon on the average. So
Yeah.
So we talked about, all the different traps and through the years. Is there anything that you guys are actually working on the product line as far as another trap coming out or a certain size or development?
What one trap we're developing now that's going to round out the Pro Series models is we're working on a 450. I think that is a good trap for the eastern area, and it's not going to be a huge seller for us because you've got crossover, but I think that rounds out our Pro Series line. So we do that. We'll have a 450, we'll have a 550, a 650, and an 850 in those premium traps. I think that rounds out that little category and makes it a desirable thing for people to use.
yeah, that'll cover all the bases. So
I think it does. Yeah.
yeah, and I think the 450 size is certainly adequate for coyotes and guys that are concerned about using a little bigger trap. That definitely gives them a good option. So
Yeah, it has its place in the eastern states. A lot of guys in Pennsylvania like that size, especially in Fox country, and down in Maryland they like that too. It has a good following, so we'll see where it goes.
yeah,
But competitively, I think we'll come right in line, just a little less than the 550, and it'll be a good deal for trappers and the supply dealers. They'll have a full listing of those premium traps available.
so are you prepared to say when those are going to be available?
I think we'll have it out by the summer.
Okay.
What
Yeah.
will you offer offset and regular jaw on those?
Yeah. Yeah,
Those
I think it's necessary on that one. We'll have an
Yeah,
offset and a regular jaw.
that's what I was thinking. That's nice. I do like that size, even though we don't really use it that often because we don't really have our fox numbers are pretty rough around here.
Yeah, we just don't have them.
But yeah, I have no problem with that trap all day long. I could set that trap and feel confident with, even coyotes getting in it and holding them just fine. Like Charlie said, there's so many people that are concerned with that size, but maybe they just haven't been trapping long enough. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah, it should hold any regular size coyote that there is, but specifically for red fox, I think it'll be what people are looking for.
Yeah, I think back when red foxes were the norm here in the Midwest, prior to coyotes, the 1.5 Victor coil was the trap. I mean, that's the one that thousands of dozens of those were sold. They cross over for raccoon too, but that was primarily just a fox trap, and everybody was a fox trapper, and of course they were bringing big money. So, and that 450 is just a step up in quality from that 1.5, essentially. So, yeah, I think that's perfect. So,
Yeah, that's the direction we're going in. I think it'll be a successful trap. Having those smooth jaw features and stainless steel rod dog. I mean, it's almost like you can't do anything to it to mess it up. I guess you can run over it with a tractor, but nothing really is gonna hold up to that.
which unfortunately happens. So.
It happens, but
yeah.
Yeah. I'll take a look at those. I'll hopefully have them on display at the convention this summer and take a look at them.
So, Bill, what groups or organizations do you guys support or help with their programs that they do?
yeah, a lot of state trappers associations that have trapper training programs, they reach out to us and we give them direct trap donations for the people that are participating in it.
Mhm.
I think that goes a long way. I've been really happy with what they've done in Wisconsin. Sky Good, I forget what her married name is, but anyway, she has a women's trapper training camp that I think is really successful. It's one of those that the rest of the country looks up to as the standard. And they're bringing women in that maybe their husbands trap, and they'd like to learn from the women's perspective on how to trap. And so it's a weekend deal. They all seem to have a really good time and learn a lot.
Mhm.
I visited with some of them when I was in Wisconsin. They would come around and just say what they really enjoyed about that. But I really like what they're doing.
Mhm.
Uh, and there's I wouldn't be able to name everybody, but gosh, there's a lot of state organizations that have trapper training and districts that have trapper training, and we give to almost all of them.
Mhm. I think the trapper training and the and most a lot. I think it's fair to say that most states don't require a trapper ed course in order to get a license. Some do, but it's just good. Obviously, the knowledge is good. It gets these guys started on the right foot, but it's also just proactive that the trapping industry is doing this. Because obviously we've got some that don't appreciate us so much. So I think that's a good thing that we help with that. In terms of.
Yeah, it is. So there are a lot of ways people can get involved in trapping, from watching YouTube videos. I mean, you think about what's available now for somebody to get involved in trapping, more resources than there ever have been.
Right.
Not
Yeah.
not the closely guarded secrets that were back in the 70s, where nobody wanted to tell you anything.
Right.
Yeah.
They didn't want you out there
Right.
with the tricks, but now, if you want to become a good trapper, you can spend a little time watching YouTube videos, maybe do a little on hand training with real trappers and you can really graduate to a higher level pretty quick.
Right. Yeah, you can eliminate lots of trial and error pretty darn quickly by following YouTube trappers. Stu Miller being one of them. So yeah.
That's right. That's right. Stu's a good personal friend, and I'm really proud of what he's able to achieve with his channel. He's brought a lot of people into it and puts a good light on trapping. There's others. Trapper Jay does a fantastic job. I like what Alan Probst is doing, bringing people in that have no prior experience. I mean, they're doing the right thing for trapping.
Right.
Have you ever heard of Who's Your Trapper Outdoors?
I have.
We try.
I have. Who's Your Trapper Outdoors is doing a fantastic job as well. I'm very proud of those guys.
Yes. Anyone in particular on that show you really like, or that's really smart?
Yeah. There's a couple of guys. They're really doing a fantastic job.
Thanks for taking the bait on that one.
Oh man.
Hey,
go ahead.
Going back to what we talked about earlier, and when you guys were in the fur business in the 70s and 80s, did you guys do business in New York City?
We did. Yeah, we did business in New York City. My dad took me on a few trips with him when we went to the fur district, and those were some of the fondest memories. You know who Ralph Slinker was, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he was a real legend in the business, and we did business with him as well. And just having that experience of being there and seeing that, it makes you long for those days, because at least the way my dad talks, you generally knew what the market was. There was weekly market reports, and you knew what the market was based on actual sales. Now it's just like throw a dart, and you might be right or you might be wrong. It's hard to know.
Right. And now, I mean, if there is a market that's going to develop, it's normally in the spring. I mean, it's late. I mean, by the time the season's kind of over. So the way you're right now, when in the 70s and 80s, when fur buyers were gearing up for the season, they had a fairly decent idea of what was going to happen, or where, if it was they had decent starting prices. But now you're right, it's just a complete guess essentially. So
Yeah, it's a complete gamble now. You don't know what the market is from the start of the season to the end of the season. You just find out later on whether you're going to make money or not,
yeah,
or whether you can even sell it.
right.
Yeah.
And
But I do have really fond memories of traveling with my dad to the city. We took the train into I guess it would have been Union Station, right, in the city, and just walked all over, and um, just real fond memories of that. And then I think too about other real legends that were in the business. You know who Marvin Mallow was.
sure.
Yeah, Marvin was a good personal friend of my dad's, and John Eby as well over in Pennsylvania. Those guys were great guys, legends that provided stability to the fur market when the market was cheap. They were buying.
Right.
I guess you could always sell to somebody, and so they would be that stability. They would buy when the market was low, and they would keep it until the market turned, and then they would sell and make money. And I really miss those guys. I was just real fortunate to live during a time that I could know them. I remember going and visiting with John Eby and sitting right at his kitchen table and talking till midnight, about to fall asleep, but he's just keeps on talking, and I just kept on listening. Because guys that have all that history, they're not going to be around forever, and
No.
if they're willing to talk with you and open up and tell you about their experiences, the least I can do is keep my eyes open and keep listening.
Right. I think, and you guys knew Bob Ferris that lived here locally, here in central Indiana.
Right. I know my dad knew Bob and did business with him. I don't remember him exactly, but I know my dad and Bob did a fair amount of business back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, he was kind of a legend too. They were pretty good sized buyers, and Bob passed away 2020 or 21. So I mean, that era is gone. I mean, those guys they're just not around. So
Yeah.
it's but yeah, he had quite a place. He had, and talking about standing up and talking until midnight. If you went, when I very first started, Bob sold a lot of traps, so he would sell traps to other dealers, and so I'd run up there and pick up traps, and he'd sit down and he'd sit down in his chair, and half the time he'd be chewing on a cigar, and you knew that once he sat down, it's probably going to be 2 or 3 hours before you got out of there. It was it's just the way it was, So especially he was a farmer too. They were pretty good sized farmers, and which his son has carried on with that. But if it's in the summertime when it was maybe just a little bit slower, then it was going to be an evening, So.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you think about too, Ludi Shetta,
Oh yeah.
the era of the 24-hour fur buying operation. I really regret that I never got to go to his place. I just never did. I heard lots of things, and we did a lot of business with him, but I never did get to go to his place.
Yeah, same here. I don't really know why. I mean, I was in Iowa, and I'd see him at conventions all the time, but he was a big personality.
He was a character.
Do you remember him doing all those auctions?
Oh yeah. At trapping conventions, he'd get out in the middle of the aisle and just start auctioning stuff off, and it drew a crowd. So I guess it worked somewhat.
The funny thing was, I remember him auctioning stuff off, and he would say, "All right, send me your first two raccoons, and that'll cover you on these traps." I mean, it was crazy, and I don't know whether he got the raccoons, or hopefully they were decent quality to cover what he sold them. I don't know.
That's funny.
He was something. So
Yeah. Yeah, I miss those guys.
Yeah.
Now this
No,
is switching gears completely, but I'm definitely curious about this. You're a pilot, you have your license, and you fly around. Do you ever check like a trap line from your plane, Tom Miranda style, or
I like to get high off the ground. I don't like to fly low to the ground. Too
yeah,
many towers and trees around. But yeah, it's something I decided to do later in life. I something I'd always wanted to do was to learn how to fly. And 1 year after Christmas, I decided to get up with a local flight school and started taking lessons. And within 6 months, I had my private license, and I enjoy it. With anything you do, you try to justify it whether it makes sense or not. If you enjoy it, so I guess in a way, since we're so far away from a lot of places that we have to go, it's maybe been a benefit business wise, because otherwise I'm having to drive a solid day just to get where I'm going. Where in a plane I can be there in half the time. It's something I've enjoyed, but you can't really justify it too easily. It's just one of those things people do, and maybe a
yeah,
phase you go through in life. But I have enjoyed it, and I've enjoyed having Stu along. I know he talked with you a little bit about that
Yeah.
on the journey. We swung in there and picked him up, and had a time.
I think he said that was the first time he'd been on a plane.
Yeah, he didn't tell me that until it was after the fact. Otherwise, we would have really given him some treatment.
oh
We
man,
had to start out on a small plane, not a big, commercial, commercial plane.
Yeah, a small plane with just four seats. There's a lot more bumps you feel in that, and yeah, I had no idea, but if we had known that, we would have really given him some treatment, just like it happened to me when I took my first flight with a guy who had a small plane. We were flying back at night, and I dozed off, and they turned around and saw me doze off, and you know what they did?
no,
They put it in a dive, and it got my attention really, really fast.
man, if you would have done that,
Oh, that would, yeah.
He might have never rode with you again. I don't know.
That would be the risk of that.
Yeah.
you'd have to put a GoPro up or something to where you can film the reaction, dive down. Oh man, that'd be great. Poor Stu.
But on the positive side, he said he felt like a movie star or something because you picked him up in a plane and took him to a convention. So
Well, it was kind of my pleasure to have him along. We were going not far from his place anyway, and I wanted him to go to a trapping convention because I don't think he'd been to an NTA convention before, and I said, hey, let us swing by there and pick you up, and he said, yeah, I'll do it.
yeah,
So we did.
Yeah. When I was a kid, I wanted to fly. My last name being Jet, it just made sense that I should, but I don't know when that faded. I realized quickly, I was like, I don't know if I belong up there. Let's crash and burn.
Yeah, it's a little bit intimidating when you start learning how to do that, but then you figure out what all the gauges do and what the controls do, and it's not as intimidating after you get a little bit more experience with it. But I still fly with other pilots when I take long cross countries. I think it's just a safety factor, and it makes my dad feel better too that we've got somebody else in there with me that if there was an emergency, or you've at least got somebody else there that can help you out of it.
right.
Yeah.
Does your dad fly with you?
We've never flown together. I think it's just one of those things we don't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to do.
No, we don't want to do.
That's probably good, sensible, so yeah.
I really think it's just good risk management. I don't want to fly with with two key people.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I gotcha.
I enjoy it, but that's but with my dad, I just don't want to take him up.
Yeah. Yeah. I get it. The first time I flew, years ago, and I don't fly often, but years ago, it was on an international flight, and the people that we were sitting next to, it was a husband and a wife, and she was telling me that they were older, but they did not like flying their entire family flying together. I mean, they'd like to split up, you know. So if their kids would be they were older kids, but they would have them on a separate flight or whatever, just to, you know, and I think
Well,
that's probably
that's really a smart thing to do, I think, especially if, you know, if there's a family business involved. You really don't want to put all your key people. I mean, there's plenty of examples where you had the whole management team on an airplane, and that's just too much risk to have in one place.
right. So Bill, what do you like to do just outside of all this?
Well, I'll tell you one thing I did do that's been a real delight. One of my really good friends here, he said to me last year, he says, "Bill, you're 50 years old. You had never killed a deer. You need to kill a deer." And I said, "You really think so, Blake?" And he says, "Yeah, you need to do that." He said, "You need to go hunting with me." And he says, "We're gonna set you up, and you're gonna kill a deer this year." So we went out and we saw a few, and gun jammed on us once, and then I missed one, and then another one came along, and I nailed it, and I knew I nailed it, but we couldn't find it.
Oh shoot.
We couldn't find it. And then a month or so goes by, and Blake calls me on the phone. He says, "Are you around the office?" And I said, "Yeah." And he says, "Well, I'm going to come by and see you." He said, "I got something to show you." And so he shows up with a set of antlers and a skull that he had found, you know, because we just didn't find it, but he ended up finding it later on, which that was kind of neat. At least I was able to keep the skull and the
Right.
horn.
Yeah.
So is that something you're going to do this year?
Oh yeah, I've already got my hunting license, and I bought a trapping license. I didn't want to keep looking over my shoulder for you know, somebody coming along to check me. That wouldn't be a good look, right?
Right.
And and I do a fair amount of travel, both domestically and international. I like I guess it's an objective I've got. I want to go to a lot of countries in the world, and so far I've been to 46. Just
Oh, that's
something.
impressive.
Well, it's just it's a goal that I've got to go to a lot of countries, visit a lot of countries, because you know, we're only on this earth so long. I'd like to see places.
Right.
It gives you a different perspective about how other people live their lives, and you learn a lot. You know, it's the experiences that people have that really matter, and I've enjoyed that. I think the travel bug it started when we'd have a few international customers that would order. I mean, it wouldn't be huge stuff, but they would order some stuff, and then I'd make a connection with them, and hey, I'd like to come over and visit you. And they'd say, "Sure, come along." And so I've been able to visit Finland, Norway, New Zealand, Australia, Japan. And those have been really neat to be able to experience. But then when I'm in regions, sometimes I'll jump off to other countries just so I can go to other places.
Well, what's your, I mean, I'm sure they're all great in their own way, but where is one spot that you just really enjoyed, thought was really cool?
I tell you, one place that I think offers the most diversity of landscape, and I think is one of the most beautiful places in the world, is New Zealand.
Yep, I've heard that several times.
I mean, they have everything there. They have mountains that you can ski. They have beaches that you can lay out on if you like getting in the water there. They have, I mean, you can whale watch there. It's such a beautiful natural environment. I've got good friends there that I stay in contact with, and I really think New Zealand is probably one of the top of all people who have traveled around the world, just because of what it offers. Iceland, that's another really pretty place. Natural beauty, not a big population, but but I did have a chance to meet a customer over there. They were trapping some Arctic foxes in Iceland, and that was an enjoyable trip to rent a car and drive around the ring road.
Yeah,
That's neat.
that's pretty neat.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, we appreciate you being on, Bill. This has been great.
Do you have any final thoughts or things you want to?
Oh gosh, I'm just going to look over the notes that we talked about. We try to keep it positive, even though there's a a fair amount of of conflict out there. But I just think that the key to staying active in trapping is finding a way to enjoy that.
Yeah.
Whether it be just taking your kids out and enjoying a little bit of trapping that way until the market turns, if that's what somebody is into, I think they should do it.
Yeah. We've been saying, or I've been saying, generally people 35 and younger, 30 and younger, they don't even ask what the fur market is. I mean, they've just started trapping. Maybe they saw a YouTube show, or they watched the Mountain Man show on the History Channel, and they just got the idea that that's what they wanted to do. And particularly when they get done deer hunting, they just, they want something to do outside for the rest of the winter, so we got a lot of that.
Yeah, that is so true. I call it the gap between deer hunting and turkey season. It's there's not a lot going on during that time period. So when deer season's over, you just see a huge number of deer hunters that are into buying trapping supplies and starting to put out some traps so they can get the predator numbers down.
Right.
I think it's one of the best things going now.
Yeah. Back in the day, it was like people would start buying their equipment late summer, early fall to really get prepared for the season. And then you would kind of see supplies somewhat slide off. But now it's like a whole second season after Thanksgiving in terms of sales. I mean, there's a lot of product moved after Thanksgiving. So
it definitely is. And I think we've all got to be thankful that we've got new people that are coming into the trade.
Right.
I mean, it's just the natural thing. If somebody's in the outdoors already, they've got that sense of how to be a trapper. And when they start making that step, they become a trapper.
Right. And that generally, if they become a trapper and they take it fairly seriously, it will actually make them a better hunter too. I mean, it kind of all goes hand in hand. So, but
yeah, I've been really, really proud of a lot of outdoorsmen. I'm talking real woodsmen that had never trapped before, and they take up trapping, and now they're catching coyotes. Like my good friend Blake I was telling you about that took me deer hunting. He's become a fantastic coyote trapper.
Mm-hmm.
And it just took a little bit of encouragement and technique, and they're there because they're already in the woods.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. It's very common to hear that they really get the bug. They catch one or two coyotes and they really got the bug, and they'll say, I think I even like this better than deer hunting. So it's not going to take the place of it, but they really enjoy it and they look forward to it. So
yeah, it's a total positive experience, I think.
Yeah. You got anything else you want to?
I think we covered a lot of what I had written down, and I'm just glad that we could visit about those legends that were in the trade, and talk about those old times. Those are real fond memories I have, and glad I had a chance to experience that.
One thing I'll mention is did you go to Marvin Mallow's place?
Oh yeah, I've been up there lots of times.
I think I was only there once, but I remember going in and there was like 30 dogs. All his coon dogs and stuff. Do you remember that?
I remember he had a lot of dogs, and I remember the place smelled like skunk essence. And,
a friend of mine at the time said the funny, and he was older then when I first met him, that he'd close at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock or whatever, and that was it. He wasn't coming back out to wait on anybody. When it was closing time, it was closing time.
Yeah, he just went to the house.
Yeah. So whatever happened to how that all fell out? Obviously he's no longer living. Did because I don't think he had any he didn't have a wife. I don't believe
he didn't have a wife, and he didn't have any children. I think his he had a nephew, I believe it was a nephew, Tom Mallow, and I think he carried on selling clothing for a while. I'm not sure if they're still in business now, but I know he kept selling a few things even after Marvin died. And but I've just lost contact, so I'm not sure if anything else is going on there or not.
Yeah, yeah. Anyways, just I remember seeing his ads in Fur Fishing Game be a full page ad and would say Marvin Mallow Fur Company, and
Oh yeah,
you have his list of all the stuff that he sold, and so
those were the days.
yeah, those were the days.
I wouldn't know. That's why I have you guys here, and will be captured on the internet for the rest of our lives.
So,
Yeah, you live through the people that lived during that time.
Yeah.
That's how you learn about it.
yeah,
Yep.
it was something. I wish I guess I wish I knew now what I knew, I knew then what I know now. It would have been much easier to capitalize on because I was very young. But anyways,
Yeah, those are the experiences we all go through. But it shapes us. It shapes us as individuals to go through those times and
definitely,
and know good people, and also do business with good people, and see the ups and downs of the fur market.
yeah, definitely. So.
Hmm.
Well, Bill, we appreciate it.
Hey, thank you guys for having me on. I wish you the best and hope you keep doing this.
But we plan to. So
yeah, I'm sure we'll see you soon.
We'll see you at a convention, I'm sure. So.
All right. Sounds good. You guys have a good one. We'll see you.
Yeah, take care.
Bye.